Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, A Foundation for Life with Second Step Elementary. My name is Forrest Walter, and I will be your host for today's webinar. We are very glad that you are here and look forward to spending about an hour or so with you today. Before we get started with our topic and I pass it off to our presenter, I want to give you a look at our agenda for today's webinar. We'll begin with introductions and a little bit about Committee for Children and the work we do. Next, we'll go over what SEL is and why it's important to intentionally teach it in elementary school. We'll go through our Second Step Elementary Digital Program and our Second Step Elementary Classroom Kits, discuss their components, and review how to teach the program successfully. Finally, we'll review complementary programs and we'll end our time together with additional resources we've created to support educators, students, and families during the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, leave time for Q&A at the end. Again, please feel free to send me your questions and comments in the chat box, and I will do my best to answer and provide relevant links to resources along the way. So now, please welcome our presenter, Jennifer Sanderlin, who will take it away from here.
Hi there, and thank you, Forrest. I appreciate that nice welcome for everyone. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Jennifer Sanderlin. I'm a Senior Education Partnerships Manager with Committee for Children. Forrest and I both get to work with schools and districts across the country. We work with the southern states to look at social emotional learning, bullying prevention, and child abuse prevention as well. In that work, before I started with Committee for Children about 8 years ago, I was a teacher, a nonprofit director. I worked with early learning, after school, really lots of different educational settings. So doing this work and helping to propel social emotional learning over the last 8 years into schools and districts and community organizations has been a real joy, and I'm so glad to be able to share this information with you today. So why don't I just give you a little bit about Committee for Children so you can understand who we are and how we got to this place. We are a nonprofit based in Seattle, Washington, with a mission to foster the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning. As pioneers in the field, really since 1979, we have dedicated over 40 years to creating support and supporting comprehensive, research-based, easily implemented, and scalable resources that make a difference in the lives of 16.5 million children and their school communities around the world and in all 50 states. We also contribute significantly to advocacy and policy work at the state and federal level to support children's well-being and helping pass policies and legislation to create supportive, safe learning environments for every child through holistic social emotional learning, bullying prevention, and child protection. So we invite you to please join us in these efforts by visiting our website, cfchildren.org, to find out how you can get involved. So before we get started too, I would like to just take a moment to begin our time together today, thinking of our commitment to equity as an organization. Our equity statement at Committee for Children is a commitment to recognize, to condemn, to disrupt, and seek to rectify systemic injustices that create barriers to children's success. So one step in that journey to supporting equity in everything that we do, I'd like to acknowledge that Committee for Children's offices sit on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. And past and present, and specifically the first people of Seattle, Washington, the Duwamish tribe. So as we honor the Duwamish tribe, Duwamish people, and the land, it's also important that we consider our place in the past, present, and future history of the Indigenous peoples in our region and how we can best support them. So thank you for the opportunity to share our commitment with you. We hope that you will join us in honoring the Indigenous peoples in your region. So most of you know Committee for Children is best known for Second Step, which is our family of programs for early learning, elementary, middle school that represent a holistic approach to building more supportive communities for every child through social emotional learning, child protection, and bullying prevention. So as you can see in this graphic, we've also expanded out our programming to include our new out-of-school time program for K-5 that launched in August of 2020, just last August. And coming soon, we will launch our SEL for adults in 2021, coming up later this spring. So I'll touch a little bit more on both of those programs and additional support complementary programs at the end of our time today, just to give you a little bit more information. I'd like to invite you, though, to join us for a webinar at any time for any of our other topics. Today, we're going to highlight our elementary program and the choices you have and the brand new elements you can look at. But we can always you can always dive into other topics if you join us for a specific webinar for each of those other programs. We'd love to have you. All right, so let's dive into our topic now for today. Now that you know a little bit about Committee for Children and how the program add-on units came to be, I'll go into those components. But I like to start with SEL as a foundation. And to do that, I want to start with this question of why teach SEL in more detail. So, and I just need to pause for one moment and have you thinking about that. What is SEL and why teach it? So if you would just put a comment in the chat box of why you would teach social emotional learning, and we'll just take those comments and Forrest may share some of those out. Just take a moment to do that. Okay. I just like us to kind of think about that before we just go straight into the topic.
There's some really great messages in the chat box. I see supporting community, overall mental health of students so that kids have strategies to manage their emotions. Some really fantastic comments in the chat box. Thank you so much for participating. Oh my goodness, so many are coming in. Building relationships, incorporating mental health and wellness, supporting the whole child. Awesome answers. Thank you so much for participating.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I just like to kind of get us all thinking, and then that helps kind of solidify the learning as you go forward. And I love to hear what you have to say more than anything. All right, so just because social emotional learning or SEL can sometimes get mixed up with other initiatives, and it's not as much of a jargon as it used to be, certainly, let's make sure that when we talk about SEL, we're thinking about the same thing. So on this slide are the 5 social emotional learning competencies based on the work by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASL. You can find out more about CASL and their research and their many resources at casl.org. I encourage you to go there. There's a lot of great information. So those 5 competencies are self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Think about those 5 competencies and how you might have even just used those yourself today. That helps kind of put those into a context. By focusing on those competencies, it translates into some important skills: understanding and processing emotions, setting and achieving positive goals, feeling and showing empathy for others, establishing and maintaining positive relationships over time, and making responsible decisions, even in the face of peer pressure. And with that, the good news is that those competencies can be taught and supported in many ways across many settings to really create that opportunity for transformative SEL as well, which is the opportunity to concentrate SEL practice on transforming inequities. Sorry, my computer gave me a notice. Let me start over on that. In terms of transformative SEL, it's an opportunity to concentrate your SEL practices into transforming inequitable settings, systems, and promoting justice-oriented or civic-minded engagement. That's really a part of the CASL framework and a part of what we intend to do with social emotional learning as well. So let's now look at some of the positive and important benefits of school-based universal SEL. So one thing that's important for educators and leaders need to do is to balance out the way that time is spent in the classroom. We know it's a struggle. And though some of you may have seen this research before, I just want to highlight for those that are newer to the field or just want this kind of in a nutshell. What you see on this slide are the highlights of a study that was done in 2011. It was a meta-analysis that looked at 213 studies of school-based universal interventions for SEL. This meta-analysis was a landmark study at the time because it really put numbers to what many people in the education field felt was true. That kids do better in school if they're socially and emotionally supported, and that schools can take an active role in helping children to build those skills socially and emotionally, in turn allowing them to be ready and able to learn. So as you can see, this was just from a one-year universal school-wide SEL initiative. The results showed some wonderful and significant gains in social emotional skills, pro-social behavior, and positive attitudes. It also showed more than a 10 percentile gain in academic success. The positive effects were long-lasting over many years, the follow-up research that happened in 2017. It also helped to promote positive life choices. Some of the other things that it did was to lower the risk for adverse outcomes, reduction of problem behaviors and emotional distress, fewer office referrals, disciplinary actions, and disruptions of class time. When you look at that, you can also sort of infer and see that by having fewer problem behaviors and emotional distress, fewer office referrals and discipline, that teachers could focus on teaching, counselors could focus on proactive work, that principals could be spending more time in school-wide efforts. So getting that time back is also a piece of that initiative and those results. So having a school-wide approach to social emotional learning with explicit skills instruction, a program like Second Step in place, can really ensure that students are equipped with a strong set of social emotional skills that become a foundation, as well as having adults that have strong social emotional skills that are being modeled to those students can really create a strength in how that school works together. So if this is happening, you can imagine how it could improve the relationships within the dynamics of the school community. Student to teacher, students with each other, teachers with each other as well. That when you have those relationships forming in these positive contexts in this positive way, that you can have a strong sense of increased safety and support. And if I could have a pointer and circle that, I would. I feel that that's especially important this year, that to get to that positive school climate, we've got to focus on those improved relationships and thinking of how we're going to provide a sense of safety and support and trust for us. And just remember too that school is not a place. School and positive school climate and community is what you make it. So if you're doing remote or hybrid work right now, some kind of combination of all the things back and forth, whatever way you're doing it, that positive school climate is really you. It's the way you approach that and how you make that work for your students. So I just want to remind you of that. So without further ado, I do want to just jump into our main topic today, that the Second Step Elementary now has two choices, your school, your choice. So today I'm going to talk about our classroom kits and our new digital program. And to do that, I want to start with a video that will help introduce. So here it goes.
Children benefit from social-emotional learning at any time, but helping them feel connected is especially important now. A modern approach to social-emotional learning can make a real difference in supporting students this year and in the years to come. Introducing the new Second Step Elementary digital program. The new program bases its lessons on the most up-to-date research, using culturally relevant and age-appropriate content. This teacher-led program keeps kids engaged while they learn social-emotional skills that help them develop empathy, build relationships, and manage emotions. The program is flexible by design. Lessons can be taught both in person and remotely, and all of its resources are accessible online. This makes Second Step Elementary easy to facilitate, so teachers can focus on helping students connect and thrive. The new Second Step Elementary Digital Program, Social Emotional Learning for Today.
All right, so exciting. This has been years in the making, and we're just very excited to provide an overview for you today and hopefully leave you with some things that you can explore further on your own. So I want to introduce our modern approach to SEL, as the video showed, and we've changed kind of the way that we're doing things. So our school-wide licenses for K through 8 for the digital program, the Access, are available from 1, 3, and 5-year subscriptions. It is a research-based, culturally relevant, and age-appropriate content embedded into the program. It is still designed as a teacher-led tool, as you can kind of see in this picture, the teacher with the program up on the screen. It's engaging material that's easy to teach in person, virtually, or with hybrid classrooms. It is fully online resources also to train staff and support program implementation. There are also tracking and monitoring tools for busy leaders who want to do some coaching or need to track for a grant, variety of different reasons that might be helpful. There are also district consultation and school level supports always included with everything that we do. And I want to let you know that Spanish translations are coming soon. So a little bit more in depth to our digital Second Step Elementary program. It is designed as a universal classroom-based SEL curriculum for K-5. So as we were talking earlier about having that social emotional learning program as a foundation, having a program that's built to do that is very helpful. So it's designed to be taught once a week. The fully digital teacher-led 15 to 30-minute lessons for each grade include scripted lesson plans and support for teachers to guide conversations. So if you've taught our classroom kit program, it will still include the things that you know and love in terms of the scripting and guidance. It has 20 lessons per grade plus Brain Builder games. So also if you're familiar with the Classroom Kits program, those Brain Builder games are a really important part of the program. And those continue on. So we've provided the URL to get directly to the elementary curriculum for the digital program there on the screen, and that will take you to a place where you can see some of the samples and things that you might want to look at visually before you dive in deeper. So here are the program skills and topics. We start with Unit 1, which is growth mindset and goal setting. This is where students learn how to develop a growth mindset and apply research-based goal-setting strategies to their social and academic lives. We then have emotion management, which is where students learn how to build their emotion vocabularies, practice identifying their own and others' emotions, and to recognize the importance of labeling and processing their emotions. We move into empathy and kindness, which is where students learn how to recognize kindness and act kindly toward others, how to develop empathy for others and take others' perspectives, how to act with empathy. And lastly, we move into problem solving. So students learn how to manage strong emotions, to feel calm before solving problems, how to describe a problem and identify the wants and needs of those involved, and how to think of many solutions and explore the outcomes of the potential solutions, and then, of course, how to pick the best solution. So we'll have the scope and sequence is available for you to look at those lessons a lot more in detail. So as I mentioned too, that the program does come with leadership tools. So that may be principals or SEL champions that are working at the district level that come in and help with some of the coaching. It could be really anyone who is overseeing your SEL efforts in your school. The tools include program training, evaluation and assessment tools, progress tracking, as I mentioned, through an online dashboard. There's also facilitator implementation, planning, and monitoring tools. So things like an all-staff overview presentation, implementation snapshot, SEL leadership team checklist, and staff meeting support. So you'll find all of those things available to busy leadership at building levels. And then I just want to mention the pricing structure because it is new. It's something that we've done with our middle school program for the last 3 years. But if you're an elementary person, you might not have explored how we've been doing that. So now just to kind of bring it all together, the Second Step Elementary and the middle school digital programs are purchased now as a K-8 school-wide license. We did that so that you could really cover any configuration that your campuses may be. In my work with hundreds, thousands of school districts, really, I've seen every combination you can imagine of K2, 3.5, 5.8, 6.8. Of course, there's lots of, K5 and 6.8s, but we want to recognize that that's not always the case. So all licenses are a K-8 structure, and a single license can align to your site with any configuration, as I mentioned, as long as the second step programs are being implemented at a single site. So when you look at the pricing, you'll also see that we have, if districts want to purchase for multiple schools, that each single school-wide license covers one site, whether it's an elementary, middle school, or combined K-8. So either way, if you're buying a single site or if you're purchasing many multiple sites together, and there's some pricing options for multiple sites, which we've not done before. So this is very exciting to have that as an option. So you can explore those pricing options and take a look at what that might look like for your school or district at that URL there, secondstep.org/help/purchasing options. You can look for our full product price list. And so if you're excited by the video and all the different components that I've mentioned already, I hope that you're ready to try it, to take a look and sample a lesson. So if you go to that website page there, you can sample a Second Step Elementary digital program lesson. You can also preview the teacher instructions and the scripting in the lesson plan, see the lesson content and the media and the whole lesson presentation. So I hope that will give you a great look at how you can do that in your classrooms. So with that, I'm going to move into our Second Step Elementary Classroom Kits, our second option, and in our webinar today. I just want to give you a high-level look at what the classroom kits are like if you aren't familiar already. So our Second Step Elementary Classroom Kits are designed for grades K through 5. They are individual, each grade level. They can include lessons, posters, teaching materials notebook. There are puppets for grades K and 1, songs and videos that are also available on disc, CDs. We know that lots of people don't have CD players anymore, though, so it's also online and streaming. And then there's also online resources I'll dig a little deeper into in just a moment. So you'll see from the program skills and topics that it is similar to the digital program. They do have some similarities of their content. Of course, the brand new program is more up to date, but the topics here are quite relevant. They start out with skills for learning, which is really being able to focus attention and follow directions, being able to work within a classroom and keep our learning as a focus. Then we move into empathy, which is really a foundation of the Second Step programs and learning how to have empathy and what is compassion. We also move into emotion management, some steps to learn how to calm down so we can recognize big emotions, and then move into problem solving and learning those steps to solve problems, picking the best plan. And then brain builder games as well, the tried and true and very important part of this program that teaches self-regulation, builds self-regulation skills through executive function, activities that build those skills specifically. So being able to focus, to follow directions, to wait, and to control those impulses, those things like that are built within the brain builder games. So it's sort of tricky learning, I always like to say. So you can take a look at what those program skills and topics are and find the scope and sequence of that on the elementary school curriculum page as well. And let's see, I lost there we go. And so as I mentioned too, there are online resources for the Second Step Elementary Classroom Kits program. It has been recently updated. So if you explored the kits at a different time and you didn't see online resources as highlighted, I just want to let you know we have updated those, or enhanced those, I should say, as of last summer into last fall. Certainly going into the pandemic, we recognized a need for all of the lesson content to be put online as well. So while it's not in a teacher portal, in the ways that the new digital program is, the access is a bit different. It is there for teachers that need that for a virtual or remote teaching. So you can get the contents of the lesson scripts online. And we've also done some improved navigation and updated the trainings. So if you haven't looked at that recently and you already teach the program, I encourage you to just go ahead and take a look and get about that. And then for the Classroom Kits program, the Spanish materials are available. They're free and online, the lessons, the family letters, the home link activities, and a glossary. And then you can purchase some posters and sing-along CDs in the lesson DVDs for select grades. So as I mentioned in the digital program, we will have Spanish translations are coming soon and on the way. We will have things as we're building out the digital program, as you're taking a look at it now. The great thing about a digital program is just being able to continually improve. So we'll be adding things as we go to make it easier for you as implementers. So for the classroom kits, just to round out this section, we do offer some leadership tools as well. We have the Second Step Elementary Principal Toolkit. It's a separate notebook with some resources specifically for the principal, or again, whoever it is that's leading the SEL efforts in your building. We hope it's principals, just because that really shows the most success in implementation. But you'll see in that Principal Toolkit some things like to help with morning announcements, some school assembly scripts, staff meeting activities, conversation guides, and more. So I'll just briefly talk a little bit about how to teach the program successfully, and it really starts with this important piece of implementing with Fidelity. So you can see from this graphic, and honestly, I think this is something to think about in any curricula that you are presenting to your students and infusing into your schools, is to remember that a program's only as good as the number of lessons that the kids will receive, how well those lessons are taught, and how often they get those lessons. So some of the things to think about is really as a foundation is to teach all the lessons and to the best of your ability with Fidelity, so you can get the biggest impact possible. Then you would have some daily practice, making sure kids get the chance to use the skills, just like math or reading or any other skill. We need to make sure that kids get the chance to try them out and to practice. And then reinforcing those skills also in the moment when they are trying those skills out, when they are in social settings or within the classroom environment, in the school environment, that you're reinforcing those skills too, so that they can transfer that learning into their regular lives in the ways that they are. And we hope that they'll do that certainly with their families. So as the last piece to this thinking about Fidelity is involving the families in the work that we do. Social emotional learning is one of those areas that when kids bring it home and the families are engaged, it can improve not only, the child's understanding and their own competence, but it can improve the families. It can hopefully translate into some of the strategies they might use and some of the language that they might use. This can be a real relief to some families, particularly with younger kids who might be struggling with some behavior. Families really appreciate having some of these same resources, and it helps schools and after-school programs and everyone who's using common language like that to really help make sure that kids are getting the support they need and that they understand better. Having across many settings can only help in this situation. So Teaching the lessons, just to kind of compare a little bit, the elementary classroom kits, there are 22 to 25 lessons. They are designed to be taught 20 to 40 minutes once per week. The digital program is 20 lessons, and they're a bit shorter, 15 to 30 minutes taught once per week as well. And then we, of course, as we have done with the classroom kits, there are ways that you can, that prompt teachers for daily practice and reinforcement skills that are built into the program so that educators don't need to figure that out on their own. There's going to be ways that will help you to do that throughout the week so that kids are learning and practicing and ready for the next week. The skills do build on each other, so it's important that they have the opportunity to reinforce those and practice. And then for families, for the classroom kits, right now we have those family letters in English and Spanish. As I mentioned, the take-home activities we also have are available for all the lessons to send home with families where they get a chance to practice and learn some of the vocabulary and understand the lessons. And then we have some online family resources as well. We have in the digital program for the beginning of the year, we'll have a family letter as well that will explain what the program is, how it works, all the wonderful resources and the skills that their child will be learning. And then as we go through the digital program, there'll be lesson by lesson communications that you can send out very easily to families so that they can be up to date and engaged along the way. We have that in our middle school program, and it's been very successful and really helpful to families and helpful to busy leaders who need that help to just sort of copy and paste and help with those communications. So you might be wondering at this point in time, which program is right for your school or district? So as with any curricula selection, we know that there are a lot of different factors that come into your decision-making process. So we've compiled some of the elements of the implementation that might be helpful for you to explore. The program is, research-based and designed to be easy to adapt and scale. The curriculum, both programs include training, family communications, and resources for implementation and for leadership. But some other things you might be kind of thinking about, what works for you, some of those things to consider. And I want to just direct you to our webpage because it has an interactive sort of tool that will help you to think about these things. So thinking about teacher access, thinking about your plans to expand, what you might be doing in the future, what is important for you in terms of evidence and research, also in terms of continuous improvement, where you're hoping to go and what each program can offer there. And lastly, the diversity, equity, and inclusion is something we've pulled out as something to highlight as well that people might be interested in looking at. And then, of course, there's always cost. We wish cost wasn't an issue, but it is. It's a factor, and it's important. It's an investment that you would be making, and we know that. So we want to help you in making those decisions as well. So you can go to our website and look for the what works for you. Just scroll down and you'll see that section. I hope you'll go there and explore a little bit and see if that helps you. But to help you further, especially for district-wide or larger implementations, I always want to invite you to just reach out to us, to reach out to our support team, and we'll give you the information at the end on how to support. But if you're a district-level person especially, and you're really trying to figure out what would this look like on the big picture, we are ready and able to give you some tools and resources and information to hopefully help you make that decision. So that was a lot of information. I want to show you a few of our complementary programs and then some additional resources. I wonder if we might take any questions right now for us, if there's anything that you have already answered or you'd like to answer from the chat box. That might be, this might be a good time before I dive into the sort of extras that we want to round out our holistic SEL.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. There were definitely a ton of questions, and I apologize if I didn't get to your question. We have a ton of participants, which is really exciting. One common thing that came up was the question about using both the physical and digital kit simultaneously as a tier 1 SEL curriculum. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Jen. I can touch briefly on it. The two curricula are separate, their own entities. So it wouldn't necessarily work as a combination of the two. You wouldn't be able to teach one lesson and then go to the digital for one lesson. It is meant to be taught as its own curriculum all the way through. So that's a great question, and definitely wanted to clarify that because we got that several times.
Okay, yeah, it is confusing. It's definitely, I'll also just sort of say for those of you who are currently teaching the kit-based program, I have I don't know about you, Forrest, but in my conversations, I have had quite a number of people asking if the digital program just comes with the kits, that now that you have your classroom kits, that the digital program would be an extension of that. And no, as Forrest mentioned, it is a wholly new program on its own and separate. So it's not an update or an upgrade to the kit-based program. They are both their own options, and both excellent options just based on what it is you might need for your district or school.
And what's so exciting about that is that you can really choose the program that's right for your environment and your students. So that is one great, exciting perk. One other thing that came up quite a few times was the question, is there a digital SEL program for the preschool level? So currently we have released our K through 8, so our elementary digital and our middle school digital. We do not have early learning or pre-K digital.
No, and I don't think that that's on the horizon anytime soon, just because we know that early learners really do benefit from that in-person, kind of tactile and visual. They do include the puppets, so there's some real benefits for the little ones to have that experience. That being said, the early learning program does also have some online components for the songs and the visuals and the lesson plans too. So if you are wanting to teach it using online resources, you absolutely can. So hopefully that clarifies things a little bit. Anything else we can touch on before we move in and talk a little bit about the complementary programs and some of the other resources we have for holistic SEL?
Yeah, just one other quick question that came in several times, and it's exciting because it seems like people are familiar with our middle school program. They are asking if the elementary program also has that performance task at the end of each unit. And we are excited to say that, yes, it does. It will have that summative assessment tool activity at the end of each unit that will allow the facilitator or whoever is observing lessons to be able to really see if the content is getting through, if students are mastering those CASEL core competencies that second step is aligned to. So we are excited to say that, yes, in fact, the elementary digital program will have those performance tasks at the end of each unit.
Oh, that is a great question. And I'm glad that they know about that. So that's awesome. I think we'll make sure to include that in the next time we present this webinar and make sure we get all those questions answered. So thank you all for those questions. I am so glad, and I'm thankful that you're engaging in the chat box too. And thanks, Forrest, for answering those. So I'll just show briefly, and again, I just want to encourage you to please come to any of our other webinars. If you want to get more detail, you certainly can't learn too much from one slide, but I'll just introduce our bullying prevention unit that is for K through 5. It is based on the field research of the bullying prevention unit, teaches students how to recognize, to report, and refuse bullying. It has unlimited online staff training. It's a very robust training for whether it's building leaders, people that are delivering the lessons, or really any and all staff in your buildings, or bus drivers. Really every person that might come in contact with students can benefit from bullying prevention training. It comes with lessons and posters, a DVD for each grade. There are 5 lessons that you would add on to the work you're doing with social emotional learning. It is designed to be a complementary program, not necessarily a standalone program, knowing that a lot of bullying prevention really comes from those social emotional skills being taught, like empathy and kindness and friendship skills, communication, pretty much almost all the skills in that social emotional learning scope and sequence can really be a foundation to bullying prevention and creating that safe school environment that I mentioned earlier. So it also comes with family materials that are lessons and activities. It has some online resources for teaching, implementation, and evaluation. The lessons and family materials are also in Spanish. And then we do have some guidance for the bullying prevention unit on teaching remotely. So if you are currently teaching it and you would like some of that guidance, you're welcome to please go to the website and you can find out more there. And similarly, we have our child protection unit, and this is 6 extra lessons. It's actually from early learning to grade 5. That is really provides extensive online training. Again, a very robust and comprehensive training. It's very similar to the bullying prevention, where there are the different modules for all staff, for teachers teaching the lessons, and for principals or school leadership to look at policies. This is a really important program to us. It's how we started. It's part of the beginnings of Committee for Children to look at how long-term social emotional learning skills can also be a foundation for child protection, that we would hopefully raise up kids that would never abuse someone else. But we also want to provide skills that kids can use now and resources for teachers, much more than a mandated reporter training would give them on how to teach lessons and provide resources to families through a trauma-sensitive lens, knowing how to certainly recognize and report child maltreatment, the signs and things that you might see. So really, it's more than just a curricula, and I can't stress that enough of how important it is to have the adults trained in both the bullying prevention and child protection unit. So there's 5 lessons and 6 lessons, and those may help you in tackling those in a really holistic way and helping your teachers to have resources and tools that they can count on. All right, so expanding even further out, as I previously mentioned, our Second Step Out of School Time program is now available. I'm very excited about this program as well, just my background and many years of working in after school and early learning programs. After school is very often not had resources that could really work with the type of environments they're in and the type of format of whatever their group sizes are, and just the ways that out of school time works differently than schools. So I'm so pleased to say that our new research-based SEL program is designed specifically for K through 5 out of school time environments. The program includes 20-minute activities for 3 grade bands, K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. There are 12 notebooks covering those grades and 147 activities. So the foundational unit starts with community building, and then we move into the unit 1 of growth mindset and goal setting, emotion management, and then empathy and kindness. So these do align with the work that we have going on in our Second Step elementary classroom kits and our digital program, but it is separate and it is special, and it really is, the lessons are designed for different settings where you might be sort of maybe in a roll-away, you might be in a cafeteria, who knows, after school programs are infused wherever they can be. Or you might be a program that's off-site, not out of school. So all of these things are going to align and expand out from what kids might be learning in their classrooms with SEL, and or it might be the only SEL that they might be getting. So we want to make sure it was robust enough and useful for those staff. And I'll just put a plug into, especially for schools that do have an on-site out of school time program, that many of those staff are interacting with the other teachers and they're trying sometimes very hard to work together. So this tool would really allow them to do that in a constructive way, and would help those usually a little less experienced folks in out of school time programs who might be just starting out to have a tool that will work for them and that they can count on and trust, of course. So with that, I also want to, we're just full of excitement here today. I also want to make sure that you know about coming soon, our second step for SEL for adults. This is going to be a research-based digital professional learning program that's designed to strengthen K-12 leaders and educators' social emotional knowledge and skills. The module-based program has small micro-learning ways for staff to do things individually and together. They prioritize educator well-being, and building a positive learning environment. And there will be new and responsive content that will be added over time. So again, that's just a very high level look. I do hope you'll go to the website and take a look further at the SEL for Adults details. What you'll find is over 15 hours of individual and group learning. Module 1 is building trust. Module 2 is managing stress. Then is advancing equity, and last is developing efficacy. So please do visit secondstep.org SEL for adults, and you can take a look there. There's some new videos and new content that was just added. So if you looked previously, look again, because there's some new things we're adding to help you explore that even further. Just one last thing. I want to, just so that you are aware, that those will be also a school-based, school-wide K through 8 license, K through 12 license as well. So those will be similar structure and to the pricing, actually the same as the kit or the digital programs as you saw earlier. So you'll find that on the website now as well. So I just want to make sure that was in there in case that came up. So the last thing I want to mention, I know the pandemic hopefully is really lessening, and hopefully we're all finding our ways back to a new normal of life that's going to include a lot of different needs for students and for staff. Even as we get kids back to school, many of you may have your kids already full-time back to school and already noticing some of the needs they may have. So maybe that's why you're here joining us today, is to just find out ways that you can support those challenges that students might be facing. So here are, I just want to alert you to our COVID-19 related resources. We have a web page dedicated to the resources that you can find to help with whether you're going back to school now, like my son is about to go back to school in 2 weeks. Whether you've already gone back to school, whether you're doing remote, hybrid, or in-person learning, supports are there. There's some online professional learning for educators that allow you to expand their knowledge on some different special topics. There's live webinars like this one that are also special topics, and you can look at that the same place that you registered for this one, or you can find that through the COVID-19 pages. And then if you are still if you're still recording yourself or live streaming yourself teaching the second step lessons, if you have the kits, those copyright permissions are good through the end of this school year. So I hope you'll keep doing that in that way if it's working for you and your students. So I know that, just even thinking about our equity statement near the beginning of our time today, that many of you might have an equity statement, and many of you might be looking for resources that address racism directly with your students and your programs. So at Committee for Children, we're really committed to addressing racial injustice and helping you drive real change in your school community. So that being said, we have compiled a collection of resources on secondstep.org that will help you to implement social emotional learning in the ways that build students' cultural assets, critically examines the systems of power, and develops better ways of teaching, learning, and being. So on this page, we have selected resources from a few organizations that are experts that we feel confident can help you in your work. So the URL is there. I also want to mention that in addition to that, we have created an alignment chart with Learning for Justice, which is formerly Teaching for Tolerance, if you're familiar with them. They are a respected leader in the field of anti-racism and anti-bias work, and they've designed a robust set of free lessons with direct instruction on identity, diversity, justice, and action that complement and enhance the SEL Second Step Elementary and the Second Step Middle School program, as well as the CASEL core competencies. So we recommend teaching these lessons in tandem with your Second Step implementation to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice work into your classroom's SEL plan. So please visit that secondstep.org anti-racism and anti-bias resources webpage. I know this is a lot of information. We're coming toward the last few things I want to share with you. And that are just some of the resources that are outside the program, but really important pieces of the work we do at Committee for Children that are hopefully to kind of wrap around the holistic SEL that is our traditional programs. So we've also created some things that can help with your families, things you might even use in your own homes, and then especially also maybe in your remote work that you're doing. So first, I want to introduce you to our Imagine Neighborhood podcast. It is an innovative way to help kids that are age 4 to 9 and their families to work through some big things happening in their little lives with songs and games and interactive and timely content. The season 1 and season 2 is already going, so there's a lot of content. You can go back and listen to some of the episodes. I think you're really going to like them, and the kids do too. So that's recommended age 4 to 9, but it could be, you could expand that out. I'm sure of it. So next we have our mindfulness resource called Mind Yeti with 15 free sessions available on YouTube. They are short 5-minute audio sessions that help to promote wellness or mindfulness and gratitude, help kids to focus their attention, become grounded, and to help them navigate some of their own big feelings. So I hope you'll take advantage of those for 15 free sessions on YouTube. We also have our Captain Compassion bullying prevention resources. Those are available year-round, but you'll see new content coming in October for Bullying Prevention Month. So if you haven't yet done anything with that this year, I'd say definitely visit CaptainCompassion.org and you can find that content. And if you already did, you can look for new things in October. If you have a summer school program, I have heard from various programs that this is a great thing to be doing during your summer program. I imagine there's going to be some kids doing some summer work for the learning to do a little catching up. So lastly, our Hot Chocolate Talk website is a research-based guide for helping families and educators, I should say, for all of you, to talk to children about child abuse and child sexual abuse. These conversations can be really hard, but they can be much easier with our guidance. So we want to just have you pour a cup of hot cocoa and sit and talk with your kids and have parents have resources to do that with their children. And as we are going into April, which is Child Abuse Prevention Month, this might be something really great that you can share out with your families. So I hope that you will share that far and wide. And then the very last resource I wanted to share with you today is we'd like to encourage you to join our Second Step Educators community on Facebook. Here you can connect with many educators dealing with the same issues and celebrating the same kinds of work that you're doing in your classrooms or that you'd like to be doing at your schools. You can ask questions of your peers, learn what's working for them, share your own experiences. I know our community manager, Matt Pearsall, is excellent at helping to answer questions and drive conversation and share out resources. There's thousands of people in that group that are all doing this work. So even if you don't have the Second Step program, I encourage you to join us and just expand your knowledge of social emotional learning and your practice in the work that you're doing with students in whatever capacity that may be. So I do have a video I could share at the last, but I wonder if we have more questions, and I think we've only got a few minutes, so I think we'll finish with our questions and Forrest could put the link for the final video in the chat box in case you'd like to see it. It really just talks about how programs like ours can really empower educators. It's a tool and a resource for teachers and others in the buildings to work with kids directly, to give them something they can count on, and a resource that is robust and made just for them. So Forrest, are there any other questions that you want to answer or that I can answer as we finish up our time today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you went through all of the content, some folks had their questions answered and wrote that in the chat box. So definitely appreciate everyone adding in your thoughts and your questions in the chat box. One other question that came up shortly after we stopped in the middle to discuss some of the burning questions was, what is the facilitation? How is Second Step supposed to be facilitated? Can it be used in small groups? Can it be used in one-to-one? And what I'll say about that is Second Step is designed to be a universal tier 1 curriculum. So taught to all students in the classroom, all of them receiving the same SEL curriculum and instruction taught by a classroom teacher or a counselor, whoever that may be, as the facilitator. So driving the conversation for students to really explore those SEL competencies and skills that they're going to develop throughout the duration of the curriculum. So long answer short, it is meant to be that tier 1 universal curriculum.
Great, thank you. Yes, and I will say that if you're interested in kind of digging into that and seeing how that works at the different tiers and what Forrest was describing, you also could go to our secondstep.org alignment. I don't know if we have that link in there, but when you go to the secondstep.org page, you can look for the alignments. And we've got several to lots of different initiatives if you're doing restorative justice or if you're doing trauma sensitive practices. PBIS, MTSS, and RTI. We do have that. It's showing the different tiers and the ways that, and I've actually meant to mention the alignments earlier on in our presentation. So I'm very glad. Thank you for that question, whoever that was. That helped to hopefully alert to others that there are some others you might do for even just the Common Core standards or counseling standards, things like that. So there's an alignment for everybody.
And I just reposted that link in the chat box. So feel free to follow that link specifically.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll just end our time. I know I want to be mindful that we are ending exactly on time. I want to leave you with our contact information. We are here to help. Our staff that answers the phone are all very knowledgeable, not just of the program, but of social emotional learning and have experience in schools and work with hundreds and thousands really of other folks doing the same work you're doing. So I hope you'll call us. You can also get in touch if you'd like a district consultation. When you go on our website and you go to the help, you'll see a contact us and a district consultation form. So you can fill that out and get in touch with us if you are someone looking at how could you bring Second Step to your district-wide efforts. So we hope you'll join us. So Forrest, would you like to say a final thoughts and goodbye?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We couldn't do the work that we do without all of you, so we definitely appreciate your time today and really look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Wonderful. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you everyone for your time, and we hope that you'll join us for another webinar in the future. In the meantime, from all of us at Committee for Children, we wish you a happy and well, hopefully feeling healthy kind of day wherever you may be, and hope to see you next time. So goodbye for now.